They're going different topic. It's going to be about baseball, historically, perspective, historical context. The 1986 regular season of baseball is the 40th anniversary of 1986 regular season of baseball. We're going to talk about an October for the ages. And I have a question, thumbnail. Once you see it, once people tune in, was the October of 1986 baseball season, that postseason, the greatest ever? Because it had a lot of great twists and turns, great moments that took place during that postseason. So it was in October for the 8th. So it was a very unforgettable postseason, the 1986 postseason. Offered up sensational comebacks, spirited performances, the making of baseball's most celebrated GOAT since Fred Merkle and the Boston Red Sox Bill Buckner. Bill Buckner was a 36-year-old with a 66-year-old knees. He was still a good enough hitter to play first base every day for the Boston Red Sox, but like a starting pitcher whose arm began to tire, Buckner was typically removed in the late innings to protect his longevity in the Red Sox lead, replaced by his virtual closer and a younger, more defensively agile Dave Stapleton. Stapleton had relieved Buckner in all seven of Boston's postseason wins, going into Game 6 of the World Series against New York Mets. So the Red Sox ahead 5-3 again, going to the bottom of the 10th inning. Stapleton ready to grab his glove and help close it out at first base. Stay put, said Boston manager John McNamara, who was blank if Buckner wouldn't get to celebrate on the field. After all, this was history in the making. The Red Sox was 3 outs away from winning their first World Series since 1918. 3 outs from ending generations of agony for Bostonian doubting Thompsons. 3 outs from once and for all exercising the curse cast upon Beantown eons ago when the Red Sox gave Babe Ruth away to the New York Yankees. History was indeed in the making, but it wasn't what Buckner and the Red Sox had in mind. Indeed, the sensational events of the 10th inning not only reconfirmed the cruel status quo for the Red Sox as Boston's ongoing Greek tragedy, but also reconfirmed that just when you thought you've seen it all in the unbelievable 1986 postseason, you had. For all of October's heroism and infamy, the regular season before it lacked serious suspense as 4 divisional winners played tough to get all year. But these 4 teams certainly provided no shows of color and excitement, easily making up for non-existent pennant races. The players, the New York Mets, just 5 years earlier, this was a sorry franchise whose most noble player was fictional, Chico Escula, the happy-go-lucky third-rate reincarnation of Ernie Banks, as realized by Saturday Night Live's Garrett Morrison. Hit the like button. Thanks for hitting the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you like the content, talking about the baseball history. The Mets were rescued from the depths by a new owner, Nelson Doubleday Jr., who beefed up the front office, opened the vault, and astutely rebuilt the Mets with a crafty balance of free agent veterans, heavy on leadership, Keith Hernandez and Gary Carter, and can't miss blue chip prospects like Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden. Add in the major's youngest and stingiest starting rotation, a cast of colorful supporting players, and the sum total of the 1986 Mets equal baseball's answer to the Beastie Boys. Right, there's 2 people liking the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Determined to fight for their right to party, the brash and cocky Mets rubbed their opponents the wrong way, as evidenced by 4 on-field brawls during the year, but clearly had the look of a team of destiny, winning a club record 108 games, switching the National League East to oblivion. The Houston Astros celebrated their 25th season, along with Mets. Many in Houston wondered if it would be their last, as criminal owner John McMullen mulled a possible move to Washington in the wake of a stagnant support. Nothing brings fans back through the turnstiles faster than winning. They came back roaring as the Astros thundered through the National League with their best record to date at 96 and 66. Now, the Houston Astros at the time was in the National League. Currently, they're obviously in the American League right now, but back then, 4 years ago, they was in the National League. Mirroring the Astros' rise from recent obscurities was a pitcher named Mike Scott. Struggling as a pure fastballer through the 1980s, Scott was taught the split finger, a fastball with a sudden ability to break, from pitching guru Roger Craig. His career turned instantly around. After winning 18 games in 1985, he won 18 more in 1986, but far more dominant, doubling his strikeout totals 306, leading the National League with a 2.22 ERA. Craig, now the manager for divisional rival San Francisco, knew he had created a monster in Scott. Clearly, the pupil thanked the master on September 25th when Scott no-hit the Craig's Giants to clinch the National League West. The Boston Red Sox. As with Scott at Houston, Roger Clemens was the story at Boston, if not all of America. Plagued by arm problems through his first 2 years, the 23-year-old Texan became an overnight sensation April 29th when he became the first major leaguer to strike out 20 batters in a 9-inning game. Not afraid to challenge or even hit an opposing batter, Clemens intimidated his way to a slam-dunk American League Cy Young and Most Valuable Player award performance with 24-4 record, 2.48 ERA, 238 strikeouts. Batters hit just 195 against him. Clemens' efforts were aided by a typically potent Boston offense led by Jim Rice, who batting average was 324, 20 home runs, 110 runs batted in. Designated hitter Don Baylor hit 31 home runs, 94 RBIs. And third baseman Wade Boggs hit 357, captured his third American League batting title in just fourth full-time year. Bill Buckner, who might have been the DH, had found a capable, healthy hitter to play first base. He batted a Bozzy 267, but he hit 18 home runs and drove in 102 RBIs. Then we got the California Angels. As it had been for 10 years, the Angels were loaded with aging postseason warriors of lore. 1986 roster featured 11 players no younger than 35, including Reggie Jackson, who was 40 years old, pitcher Don Sutton, who was 41 years old, catcher Bob Boone, who was 38 years old, infielder Bobby Grinch was 37 years old. Offsetting the elders was the new kid on the block, Wally Joyner, whose 24-year-old face looked 10 years younger, replacing the retired Rob Carew at first base. Joyner put up the most respectable numbers of any Angel, batting .290 with 222 homers and 90 RBIs. Barely older than Joyner on the mound were the team's top two starters, 25-year-olds Mike Witt, who's 18-10 with 2.84 ERA, Kurt McCaskill, 17-10 with 3.36 ERA. Backing them up in the bullpen was Donnie Moore, 11-year veteran, 1985 All-Star, who had become the Angels' star closer, and ably endured shoulder problems to Mats, 21 saves with 2.97 ERA. Daring to return the Angels to postseason play was manager Gene Mark, who had twice been so close to the World Series he could have tasted it, only to be force-fed the ashes of his team's total collapses. Losing the American League West in 1985, after holding a small lead late, didn't help erase the tag on Mark as a premier choke artist in the clutch. So this was the over the Halo game. These guys were bad guys on the California Angels. 10 of them, 35 years of age or older. They had a lot of experience. New York Mets arrival in Houston to start the NLCS was preceded by their unruly reputation. 4 Mets players had been arrested early in the year for engaging in an off-field brawl at a local country bar. For now, mechanical bulls were not on the Mets' minds, trying to find a way to beat Mike Scott. Scott opened the series by shutting down the Mets 1-0 on 5 hits and 14 strikeouts. On 3 days' rest, Scott returned to the mound as the Game 4 started, new the Mets at New York, down just 3 hits and a 3-1 complete game win. Infuriated as they were frustrated, the Mets were convinced Scott was too good to be true, try to prove with a collection of scuffed foul balls they claimed he had thrown. While Scott and the Astros laughed it off, the umpires who insisted they were watching closely as well as could not find no evidence, the Mets became resigned that the only way they advanced to the World Series was to beat everyone else in the Houston rotation, one that included Nolan Ryan, who was 12-8 with a 3.34 ERA, Bob Knepper, 17-12 with 3.14 ERA. No spins will be spared in achieving the mission. They pulled out a come-from-behind win in Game 3 thanks to a walk-off 2-run homer from the unlikely bat of second-year outfielder Lenny Dykstra. In Game 4, Dwight Gooden, no longer invincible yet still tough, doomed Ryan to extra innings with 1-1 tie, broken up in the 12th when a slumping Gary Carter woke up with a game-winning single. Back at Houston, the Mets approached Game 6 as they was Game 7. Losing it would have meant facing Scott in the finale. It didn't look promising for New York, but the Astros jumped on Mets starter Bobby Ojeda, who led the Mets with 18 wins. For 3 runs in the first inning, made it stick behind network all the way to the ninth. Desperate for the win, the Mets finally broke through with a 3-run rally, descended into overtime. It will stay tied all the way to the 16th, even after the teams traded a run in the 14th, when the Mets voted for 3 more route tallies, down to the final 3 outs. The Astros fiercely got 2 runs back, put the tying run on second, but Kevin Bass, perhaps the Astros' most dangerous all-around hitter, struck out against Jesse Orosco to give the Mets the National League pennant for the 7-6 Classic. As the specter of a 7th game against Scott vanished, the sides in the Mets clubhouse were just as audible as the wild cheers. As with the Mets against Scott, California Angels fretted over how to beat Roger Clemens. As they opened the ALCS at Boston, but unlike Scott, Clemens was far from automatic. He was shelled for every Angels tally in an 8-1 Game 1 loss. In Game 4, a more deserving Clemens pitched 8 shutout innings before he started to fray in the ninth. He was pulled for Kevin Girardi, mid-season call-up, who had rescued a lost Boston bullpen. But on this day, he could not rescue Clemens. Girardi blew the save and allowed the Angels to tie, then doubled his misery in the 11th when he gave up a game-winning RBI single to Bobby Grinch. Having beaten Clemens twice, in the ALCS 3-1, Gene Mauch arrived at the situation he had already lived through twice and suffered nightmares from since. With his Angels blow the series, the way in his 1964 Phillies blew the National League pennant, the way his 1982 Angels blew the AL pennant. For 8 innings in Game 5, Mauch believed he had reached the promised land. The Angels led 5-2 and were 3 outs from reaching their first World Series. California star Mike Waite got 2 of those outs, but also gave up a 2-run homer to former Angel Don Baylor to cut the lead to 1. The Mauch brought in reliever Gary Lucas, who hit catcher Rich Gabman with his only pitch. He went to Donnie Moore. The Angels closer had struggled late, but was only available thanks to a cornerstone shot. Moore's first batter was outfielder Dave Henderson, who earlier replaced an injured Tony Armas. And in his place, the Angels a big favorite in the 6th inning when a deep fly ball by Grinch ricocheted off his glove and over the fence for a 2-run homer. After falling behind the count and then firing off several pitches to stay, Henderson next saw a forkball that never broke. Henderson slammed over the fence, Boston 6-5. The Angels desperately pulled themselves together, tied it in the 9th. But in extra innings, Moore left it in, but Mauch struggled anew and folded in the 11th when his sudden vein and Henderson hit a bases-loaded sacrifice fly. Moore was finally mercifully removed, though little mercy was afforded by anything but angelic Angels fans who showered him with boos. Back in Boston, the Flayed Angels showed no life despite still having 2 shots to clinch the AL flag. The Red Sox jumped all over Kurt McCaskill in Game 6, 10-4, when Boston scored 7 runs in the first 4 innings for Clemens. In Game 7, it was over. The 8-1 victory completed arguably the biggest comeback in Major League postseason history to date. Now here's a list of Gene Mauch's collapses as an Angels manager. And he was with Philly. When he was with Philly, they had a 6.5 game lead with 12 to play, but they lost 10 in a row, finished in 3rd place. Then he was the Angels manager in 1982, had a 2-0 lead in the American League Championship Series against the Brewers, but lost the next 3 games to blow out in best of 5 games. In 1985, the Angels hold 1 game lead in the AL West with 1 week to play and lose 3-4 to the Royals, and they ended up winning the division by a game, the Royals. Then 1986, they were up 3-1 against the Red Sox, 1 strike away from beating the Red Sox. They lose lead game and next 2 to lose the series in 7. Bill Buckner had sprained his Achilles tendon to so badly in the American League Championship Series finale. The only way he was going to participate in the World Series was against the Mets was to wear a special orthopedic high tops that prompted NBC sportscaster Vince Slater to name him Billy Buck Shoes. Buckner's condition also made Dave Stapleton's role as his late inning reliever all the more critical. It would be put to good use in the first 2 games at New York, both won by the Red Sox 1-9-3. The Mets returned the favor in the next 2 games, playing the triumphant Road Warriors and beating Red Sox at Fenway Park 7-1, 6-2. Finally, in Game 5, the home team prevailed. The Red Sox 4-2 would put them ahead 3-2 as they travel back to New York. The Clemens ready to start Game 6. The Rocket went as far as developing a blister would allow, but his effort was adequate enough. Even with 3-2 lead with 7 innings, after 7 innings, Alias Clemens' camaraderie will fail him again. The Mets tied it in the 8th on a Keith Fernandez stack fly. At the close ninth, Game 6 was headed to extra frames. Dave Henderson, the Boston Super Sub American League Championship Series hero, didn't waste any time to get off for the 10th. He homered to give Boston the lead while giving himself a serious bid for baseball immortality. One Stearns run later, the Red Sox had the Mets backed up against the well going to the bottom of the frame, leading 5-3. Girardi remained on the mound. Stapleton against convention remained in the dugout while Buckner stayed at first base. The first 2 Mets flied out. The Red Sox, since the end of the curse, destiny seemed abandoned for the Mets. The Shea Stadium scoreboard operator was already exceeding prematurely, flashing a message congratulating the Red Sox as world champions. Long-suffering Red fans worldwide began picturing themselves that this couldn't be true. It wasn't. Gary Carter singled. Kevin Mitchell, addressing in the locker room, convinced the series was over, was told to put his pants back on and pitch hit. He singled. Third baseman Ray Knight overcame a 0-2 count and singled, scoring Carter and with Mitchell to third as a tying run. Veteran Boston reliever Bob Stanley relieved Girardi. He engaged Mookie Wilson in a tough at-bat, in which Wilson fouled 2 pitches on a 2-2 count. Then Stanley gave in, at least a wild pitch that nearly nailed Wilson's ankles, bringing Mitchell home with the tying run. The count now full. Wilson swung next, hacked the grounder toward first base. Buckner, playing well behind the bag, watched it bounce once, then twice, then expected a third bounce right in front of his glove. It skimmed underneath. Racing around third was Knight, deliriously jumped home for joy. With the winning run as incredulous, Buckner could only turn around and watch the ball, and the Red Sox season died behind him. Game 7 still gave the Red Sox the opportunity to grace the memories of Game 6, but like the Angels before them, the images of agony were too deeply encrypted into the psyche of the Red Sox to make a difference. Even after being spotted an early 3-0 lead by the Mets, the number Red Sox couldn't hold it. New York tied it in a 6th, sped past Boston for good, and starting with a Ray Knight home run off of Girardi, looking more and more petrified as he crashed and burned on the mound once more. The Mets won 8-5, taking in their second world championship by the never-ending plight of the Boston Red Sox. To win it all grew more Shakespearean. Buckner, as expected, was hung in effigy by the Red Sox legions for his monumental blunder that put him on the all-time podium of shame, the likes of Fred Merkle and Fred Snodgrass. But Boston Red Sox fans, while not forgetting, do forget. After all, heartbreak came with every generation at Fenway Park. Traded in 1987, Buckner returned to Boston in 1990 was practically hailed as a folk hero. The ribbing of Buckner would remain permanent but good-natured. Gene Malk never made it to another postseason. He worked one more year at Anaheim, then gave it up, down to health issues. No one has ever managed as long as Malk and never reached the World Series. The postscript was more tragic for Donnie Moore. Never forgetting for serving up Dave Henderson's home run, Moore in the ensuing years fell into physical, emotional disrepair. In 1989, released from baseball, still tormented by the memories of 1986, in the heat of a domestic spat, Moore shot his wife, who struggled to escape, and fairly turned the gun on himself. Had fortune frowned suddenly upon him, Dave Henderson likely would have kept the faith. He did all he could to be a hero. Even his performance could only merit a bittersweet denouement. Henderson will soon catch on as a solid everyday regular in Oakland, displaying a lighthearted joy for the game with his trademark impenetrable grin. Victory may have eluded him in 1986, but perspective did not. This was, after all, just a game. In 1986, baseball fans enjoyed all of it. That's it. That's a look at 1986 regular season as well as the postseason. That's what this thumb drive, look at the thumb drive, is about. Was this October postseason 86 the greatest ever? Well, I just talked about and discussed. In the case it was the greatest ever. It's the October for the ages. That's it for today. I Be back at 2 o'clock with a classic interview that I did when I was doing the Rashad Mitchell show on JavaScript Radio. Author Thomas F. Scholar wrote a book about the common enemies, about the Hurricanes of Miami and the Georgetown Warriors, how they were polarizing in the 1980s. Going to listen to be a great interview for you to listen to coming up. So I'm done with today. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe to the channel. Be back at 2 o'clock sharp. So we play an interview that I did a few years back about Common Enemies book written by author Thomas F. Scholar about Georgetown Warriors, Miami Hurricanes of the 1980s. How they was they transformed the racial transformation in college athletics. They really did that. They're polarizing and all that stuff. So that's it for that. Thanks for tuning in to this live feed. Like, subscribe to the channel. Till then, talk to you at 2 o'clock. Rather, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to play the interview in its entirety. Hope you enjoy it. So, get ready for the live feed at 2 o'clock.